with the, let's start immediately with the text that we start on in the slideshow. We had so many delays, so it means that the outcome of this class will be very, very important. This is why the other side is trying to stop it at all cost. And today we'll discuss a very important point that each one of us is struggled with, is the trust and the belief that everything will be all right, right? Especially at the times that we are, where there is war in Israel, and everyone's security, personal security, is it feels not as always and not as usual. So the question is, how can we be how can we be sure that everything will be all right? Okay, Heji, if you could start the slide.
Yes, Rabbi.
And let's see, yeah. Let's see, go backwards.
One minute.
Okay, another one. That's how it begins, right?
Yeah, 1 minute. I'm adjusting on this on 4.
Okay, so this source number 1 is from a very old book called Reshit Chochmah, and it has many gates in it. One of it is a very important and basic book that speaks about the ability of a Jew to trust Hashem and what it takes and what's the source of all the trust that we speak about all the time, trust in Hashem, a faith in Hashem, a trust in Hashem. And also it speaks about a very, very important point, which is the difference between faith and trust. Because faith, we all have faith in Hashem, right? Do you? Right? Each one of us have faith in Hashem.
Yes.
And the problem is that this faith not always means that we trust Hashem. Okay, there is as kids, there is this game that you do that you have to close your eyes and then fall to your back and trust that your friend will hold on to you and you will not crash to the floor. Okay, so many kids, they will have faith in their friends, that their friends are capable of holding up to them. But when you ask them to actually close their eyes and fall to their back, they will be afraid to do. And we have the same problem with Hashem, because we know Hashem can do everything. Not only we know that Hashem can do everything, we know Hashem is doing everything, but at the same time, we need to have complete trust in Hashem. And trust, what is the definition of trust, and how is actually something that is possible to implement for every human being? Okay, so we will discuss this. And as I told you in the introduction, I think it's an eye-opener shiur. Chenji, please start with the source number 1, which is Reshit Chochmah and Sha'ar HaBitachon.
Trust in God is inner peace and calm in the face of worries, knowing that there's something to lean on, a shield, a strong wall. This is because everything comes from God. This is why King David said, I trust in you, God. I trust in your kindness. In this I trust. In him my heart trusts, and I will be saved. Trust in him and he will do.
So what it does is bringing another many quotes from the Torah that we're not talking about believing in Hashem. Obviously, when King David says, I trust in Hashem, he didn't speak about this basic level of just believing in Hashem, but he speaks about having trust, having trust in Hashem. Okay, so it further goes to explain what does it mean in the next slide.
We must know that God's kindness and generosity extend to those who trust in him, whether deserving or not. His kindness and generosity will never cease nor subside.
So this is very, very important, because a person might say, I trust in Hashem, but that only when I deserve it. But in my case, I don't deserve it, or I may not deserve it. And if I may not deserve it, what's the source, what's the reason I should trust in God that God will do good to me? Because I messed up, and if I messed up, that God is not entitled to give me only good things because I did not follow the recipe books. Saying the Reshit Chokhmah, that a person must know that God's kindness and generosity is not only for those who deserve it, but it's also for those who don't deserve it. And that's a very basic, that's a very fundamental rule that we should know, that even you might think, and might be that might be the truth, not only you thought, that you don't deserve it. Nevertheless, Hashem generosity and Hashem kindness, it's also for those who don't deserve it. Now let's see another source.
When you go out to war and you see a horse and chariot, a great nation, do not fear them. We are exhorted that when we see danger approaching, God's salvation should be in our minds, and we should put our trust in it. As the verse says, for his salvation is near to those who fear him. And who are you that you fear mortal man?
Yeah, so what do we see? That it's not actually as a good advice, okay? You are advised to trust in Hashem, but it's a mitzvah from the Torah. It's an actual commandment in the Torah that we should have trust in Hashem. And this is in a case, even when you see a great dangers that comes your way, and you may not see any other way to save yourself from it, nevertheless, God, who is greater than all dangers, he is the one who will save you, and you are commanded to trust in Hashem that Hashem will do so. And now let's start. We're going to have this is a combination from couple of talks from the Rebbe on different occasions, and we're going to see how the Rebbe lays it out and what the Rebbe does with it, and then we'll try and discuss how we can actually implement it in our life. Henji, please.
Trust in God, bitachon, is one of the fundamental principles of Jewish belief. This means having confidence in God that things will be good in an open and revealed form. This concept appears in many places in the Talmud and rabbinic teachings and is explained at length in Chovot HaLevavot, Duties of the Mind. In the section on trust in God, Sha'ar HaBitachon, it is also explored in Hasidic teachings on the verse, trust in God forever. Even when we see that things are not going well, whether based on signs from above or below, we are told not to give up hope.
Yeah. Continue, please.
Rather, we should strengthen our complete trust in God, particularly through prayers and positive actions, and have faith that a difficult situation will be transformed into open and revealed good. In fact, challenges often lead to even greater good, just as light shines brightest after darkness.
Yeah. So what is our first commandment? Our first commandment is to have trust in Hashem and have complete trust in Hashem that everything that we worry of will not happen. And Hashem will save us from all those things and all those difficulties, and nothing will happen. They will not happen to begin with. Okay? And very often you see that things that you fear them, okay, they were just a challenge. Nothing happened to you. And this is the first mitzvah that we are obligated to learn. There's a great story with the Baal Shem Tov. Baal Shem Tov once had a dream, where in the dream it was commandment to go to learn from a person in some village what level of faith a person can reach in faith in Hashem. So the Baal Shem Tov took his students and he went to this went to this person, and this person, he had an inn. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Rabbi,
Yes,
we can
Am I
hear you.
audible?
Yes, Rabbi.
Okay. So this person had an inn, and people would come to the inn and they would drink beer at the end of the night, at the end of the working day, and they will give him money. and with this money, it would sustain his family. Came the Baal Shem Tov with his entire team of students, and he greeted them very, very, very happy. And they said, let's make a feast. And it was in the morning, and he was preparing a big meal. And they started sitting for the meal. They blessed the food, and they started the meal. And an hour to the meal, somebody walked in, a police officer walked in with a big staff and banged on the table 3 times and walked out. So everybody was curious, like, what's going on? So they asked the owner, what's happening here? What is it? They said, today is my last day to pay my rent, which I haven't paid in a long time. And the rule is that the paritz, the landlord, the sheriff, sends the police officer, and he comes 3 times, he bangs on the table, and this is as a reminder that I need to go and pay them the rent. But he said the story with such a relaxed manner that the Baal Shem Tov asked him, why didn't you go and pay until now? So he said, because I don't have the money. It's a big amount. Business was not as good recently, so I couldn't pay the money. So the Baal Shem Tov was surprised to see how much relaxed this person is, and they continued in the meal. And after 1 hour or so, this officer walks in, this police guy walks in and bang on the floor, on the table 3 times. And everybody is looking, all the students are looking at this guy because they know what are the consequences if he doesn't pay the bill, right? If he doesn't pay the bill, it's not that he's going to be sued in court. He's going to be thrown into jail. But he still was relaxed, like no tomorrow. And then when he came the 3rd time, so he said, okay, it's time to say Birkat Hamazon because I have to go to the paritz, to the landlord. But I told him, what are you going to do by the landlord? Do you have the money to pay? He said, no, Hashem, who takes care of all my life, will continue to take care of me, and he will help me pay the bills. So everybody was shocked. And he made Birkat Hamazon, the grace after the meal, and then he took his coat, and he walked out. The Baal Shem Tov said that he never saw something like this. He got to see what's happening with him. So he went on to the 2nd floor, to the porch, to watch how this person goes into the landlord's house. And he sees that a few 100 meters after he left the house, there was a wagon that drive by and stopped next to him. And he sees from far that they are discussing this person with the person in the car, in the chariot, sorry. And after a few minutes, he sees that he makes with the head like this, and the chariot drives by. And 2 minutes later, the chariot comes back, and there's again discussion for another minute, and he hands him over a bag. Okay, and this person from the chariot comes to the inn towards the Baal Shem Tov. He walks in, and the Baal Shem Tov asks him, what has just happened there? He said, oh, that guy, the operator of the inn is a very good friend of mine. And I decided that I want to go into business with him. I want to be his partner. So I saw him in the street. I walked over and I offered him to be his partner. So he said that he wants a very big amount of money in cash. So I said to myself, this is too much to ask. So I started bargaining with him. I offered them 1/3 of the price, half the price. They said, no, I need this exact amount. If not, I'm not becoming your partner. So I drove by. And then I said to myself, you know what? He's so honest. He's so trustworthy. I better go and do the business opportunity with him. And I went and I gave him the amount. The Baal Shem Tov asked him what was the amount, and that was exactly the amount he needed to pay the rent to the landlord. So the Baal Shem Tov learned how much trust in Hashem, not faith in Hashem that Hashem runs the whole show, but trust. He was completely relaxed. And if Chenji will go to the Sorry. If Hedge will go to the slide, we'll see the one before it. Yeah, so you'll see, no, the one before it. Sorry. Yeah. So we must know that God's kindness, it's so much to even those who deserve it and those who don't deserve it. And this is why it was so peaceful. And the Baal Shem Tov learned from it how much a person needs to be in trust in Hashem. Okay, let's continue, Hedge. Now comes the question, what do you do when things are not the way you wanted them to happen? Okay, and this is very important question. Yes.
Praying for good. Furthermore, in addition to trusting that God will certainly grant us open and revealed good, we must also actively pray for it. In the words of Maimonides, it is a positive commandment to pray, asking for the needs that one requires with supplication and pleading. All of the specific requests we make in the Amida prayer are on this theme. Their literal meaning is the most basic, such as heal the sick, bless the ears, etc. The same applies to our personal requests that we are allowed to add in the blessing of hear our voice beyond the standard text recited by all. The common theme among all these prayers is a request for clear and tangible good.
Yeah, so what is the other thing? The other thing, aside of having trust in Hashem, okay, we also need to pray for Hashem. We need to pray that Hashem will change everything that comes our way, that it should be good. And good, we know that God is the source of goodness. So whatever comes from God is good. But we're asking Hashem, we're praying to Hashem that everything that comes my way should not only be good, but should be a revealed good. It should be goodness that I can understand, that I don't need to go to a Torah class in order to understand that is good, but I can understand it with my own, in my own way. And what's the source from it? The source from it is actually from Maimonides, which we just started Maimonides, another circle of Maimonides, learning the Mishnah Torah and the book of Mitzvot 2 days ago. And I encourage all of you to join us in the cycle. Kenji, next slide, we'll see the source of Maimonides. How Maimonides describes that it's actually a commandment that will ask Hashem for everything that we need.
It is a positive commandment to pray daily. This is the obligation. We must beseech God and pray every day, reciting God's praises first and afterward requesting our needs.
Yeah. And now we're going to move on to another level. And the other level is, what if there is a decree on me? Okay? I've done something wrong, and there is a decree on me that I should be punished with something. So we have an unbelievable story with King Chizkiyahu, and with the prophet Isaiah comes to him with a prophecy that he's going to die. And normally people do not like to die. And same was true to King Chizkiyahu. He didn't want to die. So he started conversing with prophet Yeshayahu, Isaiah, to see what happened. And to the point that he was able to change the decree, and he had long life to continue, even though he was decreed before to die. Let's see the story from within. Kenji, please.
In those days, Hezekiah became deadly ill, and Isaiah ben Amos, the prophet, came and said to him, "So says God, set your house in order, for you will die and you will not live." This seems redundant. What is the meaning of you will die and you will not live? This repetition means you will die in this world and you will not live. You will have no share in the world to come.
So this is like double, it's twice, okay? Not only you physically will die, but also spiritually in the world to come, your soul will not have a portion in the world to come. So he was shocked. Chizkiyahu was shocked. He said, what have I done wrong to deserve such a punishment? Yeah.
Hezekiah said to Isaiah, "What is all of this for? For what transgression am I being punished?" Isaiah said to him, because you did not marry and engage in procreation.
And we have a mitzvah to procreate. This is actually one of the first mitzvah that we have. And because you did not, you were not engaged in this mitzvah, so you are punished. So what is Chizkiah said?
Chizkiah apologized and said, I had no children because I envisaged through divine inspiration that the children I will have will not be virtuous. Chizkiah meant that he had seen that his children were destined to be evil. In fact, his son Menashe sinned extensively, and he thought it preferable not to have no children at all. Isaiah said
so what do you think? What do you think as his excuse? Sounds like a good excuse, right? He cares about God creation. He cares about God's world. And because he knows what's going to happen with his children, that his children will destroy God's world, so he didn't want to have them to begin with. And this is why he was not involved in getting married and having children. But see what Yeshaya clearly says to him. And it's also something that we need to learn from it. Yeah.
Isaiah said to him, why do you involve yourself with the secrets of God? That which you have been commanded, the mitzvah of procreation, you are required to perform. And that which is acceptable in the eyes of God, let him do, as he has so decided. Hezekiah said to Isaiah, give me your daughter as my wife. Perhaps my merit and your merit will cause virtuous children to emerge from me.
So, but Yeshaya refused. Why?
Isaiah said to him, the decree has already been decreed against you, and this judgment cannot be changed. Hezekiah said to him,
and he's a prophet. Now, the prophecy, okay, the prophecy is ended over there. Okay, so because he started speaking about the future, and King Chizkiyahu said to him, I don't want to continue listening to you. Why? And this is very important for us. This is why we bring this source. Yes.
Should I start again? First paragraph?
Yeah, Chizkiah said to him.
Chizkiah said to him, the decree has already been decreed against you, and this judgment cannot be changed. Chizkiah said to him, son of Amos, cease your prophecy and leave. As long as the prophet spoke as God's emissary, Hezekiah was obligated to listen to him. He was not, however, obligated to accept Isaiah's personal opinion that there was no possibility for mercy and healing. Hezekiah continued, I have received a tradition from the house of my ancestors, from King David, the founding father of the dynasty of kings of Judea. Even if a sharp sword rests upon the person's neck, he should not prevent himself from praying for mercy.
And the end of the story is that is actually Hashem actually forgives Hizkiyahu, the king, and he had many, many more years. And in fact, he had a son who became a great sinner and did many, many bad things. But this was not his responsibility. Your responsibility is to do what Hashem asked from you. So what we see from it is that even if a person is already decreed, there is a decree against us, God forbid, and even if the decree is a spiritual decree against us, with a prayer, we can change everything. So we started with the trust in Hashem that everything will be good. We continued that we have a mitzvah to ask for good. Now we had a story with Yechizkiah, the king, that even if you have a decree, not only your imagination that something bad comes your way, but you really have a decree. And how do you know about it? From the prophet. The Hashem's prophet, Hashem sent his messenger to tell me. Even then, even if Hashem decided something with a prayer, I can change the decree. Okay? So the question is, what do you do how do you deal with the fact that sometimes you actually have bad things coming your way? Like sometimes you get fired from the job. Sometimes people get into chas v'shalom accident. Sometimes people have financial losses. Sometimes people have health issues. Sometimes Am Israel is experiencing October the 7th. How do you deal with it? So this is going to be the next section, where in that section, the Rebbe takes us to a higher level in trust and faith in Hashem, that we need to be prepared to receive whatever Hashem sends us. And if it's something that we perceive as something bad, we need to know that whatever Hashem is doing is good. Let's see how the Rebbe phrases it. And there is a very interesting story that comes in the middle of it. Chenji, please.
One may still hold out hope that his prayers will be answered, as was David himself when he saw the angel of destruction, but prayed for mercy and his prayers were answered. Concerning the fact that one should not despair of God's mercy, the Gemara cites that it was also said that Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Eliezer both said, even if a sharp sword is resting upon a person's neck, he should not prevent himself from praying for mercy, as it is stated in the words of Job. Though he slay me, I will trust in him. Even though God is about to take his life, he still prays for God's mercy. Rabbi, should I continue?
Yes, that's continuation of the story with King Chizkiyahu and Shaya the prophet. We stopped in the middle for some reason and I continued, yes?
Having heard Isaiah's harsh prophecy, immediately Hezekiah turned his face towards the wall and prayed to God. The Gemara asks, what is meant by the word wall in this context? Why did Hezekiah turn his face to a wall? Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish said, this symbolically alludes to the fact that Hezekiah prayed to God from the chambers of his heart, as it is stated elsewhere. My anguish, I am in pain. The chambers of my heart mourns within me.
Yeah. So what do we see? That belongs to the previous part, where with a prayer, we can change everything, even if we are decreed to something not good. Now the question comes, what happens if something bad already happens to me? How do I perceive it? How do I cope up with it? And that's the next section. Chenji, please.
For good and for bad. On the other hand, when something unfortunate happens, God forbid, after the fact, we must bless God for the bad just as we do for the good. As the verse states, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. This means accepting whatever measure God metes out to us with gratitude, whether it be positive or calamitous.
Yeah. And what's the source for it? So first of all, it's from the Kriyat Shema, from Ve'afta et Hashem Elokecha. But what's the source? How do we learn this? So this is from the Talmud in Tractate Brachot. Yes, source number 5. Chenji, please.
We are obligated to bless God for the bad that befalls us, just as we bless him for the good that befalls us. As the verse states, you shall love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. The Mishnah explains this verse as follows. With all your heart means with your two inclinations, with your positive inclination and your negative inclination, both of which must be subjugated to the love of God. With all your soul means even if God takes your soul. And with all your might means with all your money, as money is referred to in the Torah as might. Alternatively, it may be explained that with all your might means with every measure that he metes out to you, whether it is good or troublesome, thank him.
Yeah, so we need to thank Hashem for even bad things that we perceive as bad, we need to thank Hashem. And let's see how Rashi explains it. It's not there, but Rashi explains clearly that even when it comes, midat poranut, troubles are coming your way, you have to have trust and faith in Hashem that whatever comes my way, it's for good. And why? Very simple, because Hashem loves you. And Hashem loves you. Because Hashem loves you, whatever He sends your way is out of love, and this is true for your benefit. And let's see how the Rebbe explains.
Accepting with joy. Moreover, we are told that we must accept it with joy, just as we would rejoice over openly visible goodness, because this too is for the good. As our sages said, everything that God does is for the good. Or, as a Hebrew expression puts it, this too is for the good. In other words, while we should trust in God and pray for all our needs to be fulfilled in a way that is clearly and visibly good, if a prayer does not bring the desired outcome, God forbid, we must still recognize that everything comes from God. Therefore, without a doubt, everything God does is for the good. And even more so, this too is for the good, even if that good is not immediately visible to human eyes.
And therefore, what the Rebbe wants to say, that when good things happen to you, what reaction it brings out of you? A reaction of joy, right? If I win the lottery, if I, Bezrat Hashem, I'm successful in something I wanted very much, so what reaction it brings out of me? Reaction of joy. I start dancing around. I'm calling my friends. Hey, I got this. I want this. I get this business, this deal I made. I bought a new house. I bring my friends to feast, to celebrate together. That same reaction we need to have even when, unfortunately, chas v'shalom, bad things coming our way. And why? Because it comes from Him. And He knows what is good for me. And therefore, if I accept that, I said, you know what, Hashem, I'm accepting whatever you do. That's not enough. Because we need to serve Hashem with joy. So accepting what Hashem is doing with our intellect, it's not enough. We have to process it and remind ourselves. And the only way to do it is when you actually thinking of God and understanding who is God, and that whatever Hashem is doing is good. And soon we're going to have two stories to explain the differences between them. Only then, even when bad things happen to you, you can process it in a way that it will bring an outcome of joy. Now let's go further on how the Rebbe explains it in detail.
Put a little differently, we should live each day with faith in the living God by following the teachings of the Torah of life with energy and joy, because joy is a defining characteristic of true life. When we conduct ourselves in this way, no external changes or events can shake the core principles of our life. Therefore, in every moment, in every situation, we must serve God with joy and gladness, accept it with joy. At the same time, we still pray to God that our present and future circumstances should be visibly and clearly good.
Yeah. So the way the stages that it's walking, it's this way. Initially, we have to trust in Hashem. Even when, God forbid, we have trouble coming our way, we need to know that we have trust in Hashem, that Hashem will save us from this trouble. If, God forbid, this trouble actually hits you, and whatever you were fearing actually happened, God forbid, even then, you have to rejoice and you have to be in a level of simcha, a level of joy, because everything comes from what? Everything comes from Hashem. And Hashem is only doing things that are good for me, for my for my benefit. And therefore, even if it's something that I was hoping not to happen, nevertheless, and before it happens, I have complete trust, 100% trust that it will not happen. And I'm praying for Hashem that it will not happen. And even if if there is a decree against me, with my prayer I can change that decree. If God forbid that thing happen, I don't break all the dishes, because I know that even if it's happened and I was hoping and praying and trusting Hashem that it will not happen, I know that it's from Hashem. the source of good, and Hashem, the source of good, is only doing good things to me. And now we're going to have a very special two stories about two great sages. One is in the name of Rabbi Akiva, okay, the famous Rabbi Akiva, and the other is his teacher, Rabbi Akiva's teacher, which his name was Nachum Ish Gamzu, and these both stories are brought down in the Talmud. We will learn those both stories, and then the Rebbe will analyze them, and we see those two parts that we learned before. Kenji, please, let's continue.
Rav Huna said that Rav said in the name of Rabbi Meir, and the same was also taught in a Baraita in the name of Rabbi Akiva. One must always accustom oneself to say, everything that God does, He does for the best. The Gemara relates, like this incident, when Rabbi Akiva was walking along the road and came to a certain city, he inquired about lodging and they did not give him any. He said, everything that God does, He does for the best. He went and slept in a field, and he had with him a rooster, a donkey, and a candle. A gust of wind came and extinguished the candle. A cat came and ate the rooster, and a lion came and ate the donkey. He said, everything that God does, He does for the best. That night, a militia came and took the city into captivity. It turned out that Rabbi Akiva alone, who was not in the city and had no lit candle, noisy rooster, or donkey to give away his location, was safe. He said to them, didn't I tell you? Everything that God does, He does for the best.
Yeah. So what do we see? That's the source. And today it's a very famous saying that whatever Hashem is doing, it's for the best. The source for this behavior and the source for this saying comes from Rabbi Akiva, who practically experienced it in his life. Whatever came his way, he said, whatever Hashem is doing, it's for the best. But the Talmud, in a different place, brings another story, and that story is of Rabbi Akiva's teacher, Nachum Ish Gamzu. That's an unbelievable story. Kenji, please.
Why was he called Nachum Ish Gamzu? The reason is that concerning any matters that occurred to him, he would say, this too is for the good. Gamzu le tova. Once, the Jews wished to send a gift to the house of emperor. They said, who should go and present this gift? Let Nachum Ish Gamzu go, as he is accustomed to miracles. They sent with him a chest full of jewels and pearls, and he went and spent the night in a certain inn. During the night, these residents of the inn arose and took all of the precious jewels and pearls from the chest and filled it with earth. The next day, when he saw what had happened, Nachum Ish Gamzu said, this too is for the good. When he arrived there at the ruler's palace, they opened the chest and saw that it was filled with earth. The king wished to put all of the Jewish emissaries to death. He said, the Jews are mocking me. Nachum Ish Gamzu said, this too is for the good. Elijah the prophet came and appeared before the ruler as one of his ministers. He said to the ruler, perhaps this earth is from the earth of their father Abraham. As when he threw earth, it turned into swords, and when he threw stubble, it turned into arrows. As it is written in a prophecy that the sages interpreted this verse as a reference to Abraham. His sword makes them as a dust, his bow as a driven stubble.
Thank you.
There was one province that the Romans were unable to conquer. They took some of this earth, tested it by throwing it at their enemies, and conquered that province. When the ruler saw that this earth indeed has miraculous powers, his servants entered his treasury and filled Nachum Ish Gamzu's chest with precious jewels and pearls and sent him off with great honor. When Nachum Ish Gamzu came to spend the night at the same inn, the residents said to him, what did you bring with you to the emperor that he bestowed upon you such great honor? He said to them, That which I took from here, I brought there. When they heard this, the residents of the inn thought that their soil upon which their house stood had miraculous powers. They tore down their inn and brought the soil underneath to the king's palace. They said to him, that earth that was brought here was from our property. The emperor tested the inn's soil in battle, and it was not found to have miraculous powers, because the miracle had been performed only in the merit of Nakum Ish Gamzu. The king ordered that these residents of the inn be put to death.
So here we had two stories. One of Rabbi Akiva with his donkey, and the other story with Nachum Ish Gamzu with the king and the box that was changed from pearls and diamonds into earth. Why do we need two different stories? This is the analysis that the Rebbe is going to make, because those two stories, they seems to be on the same point, that whatever Hashem is doing, right? Hashem is doing for the good. Hashem is doing for the best. What's the difference between those two stories? Anybody can come up with an idea why the Talmud is telling us one story about Rabbi Akiva and another story about his teacher? Why couldn't we suffice with one story? Is there any difference between the stories? Any thought?
Yes,
Any
Rabbi.
idea?
No, but
Please,
Chaya had shared the story before you in our women's class. So she beat you to it. But I'm not qualified to explain, though I know it. So please continue, Rabbi.
I don't understand why you said to yourself that you don't clarify. Don't you meet those challenges in your day-to-day life?
And so much more, yes.
Yeah, so you are more qualified than anyone else.
Yeah.
You don't need
No, Rabbi.
to have challenges in life. You don't need long black beard like me. Challenges comes your way usually. And the more
Yes.
challenges you have, the more you are capable of explaining this. Because what the Rebbe explains is that even though those two stories, they seems to be going at the same point, but it's a complete different reaction of Rabbi Akiva and Nachum Ish Gamzu that brought a complete different result. Let's see it inside. That's from a different place. That's in Likutei Sichot, where the Rebbe does this unbelievable analysis of these two stories. Kenji, please.
Good now or good later. There's a difference between the two examples. In the story of Rabbi Akiva, the events that occurred caused him loss and suffering. As a result of them, he was forced to sleep in the field because he was not allowed to enter the city. He remained in darkness because the wind extinguished his candle, and he lost his rooster and his donkey because they were killed by a cat and a lion. All these events turned out to be for his benefit, as they saved him from the bandits, but the events themselves were distressing. In contrast, in the story of Nakum Ish Gamzu, there was no loss to begin with. On the contrary, if Nakum had brought precious stones and jewels, it is uncertain whether they will have been accepted by the king, since the royal palace has no shortage of such things. It was specifically when he brought dust that his gift was accepted. Initially, the situation seemed like a misfortune, because people couldn't see the true good. But once the hidden goodness of the event was revealed, it became clear that it had been truly good all along. In other words, in the story of Rabbi Akiva, he experienced suffering, but through that suffering, he was saved from greater suffering. In the story of Nakum Ish Gamzu, the event itself, the theft of his jewels and their replacement with dust, was good from the start. This is the difference between the two expressions. Everything that God does is for the good does not necessarily mean that every event is inherently good, but rather that his ultimate purpose leads to good.
That's in the words of Rabbi Akiva. But in the words of Nachum Ish Gamzu, yes, Khanji, these two.
This too is for the good means that the event itself is good, even if that goodness is not immediately visible.
Yeah. So these are the differences between the level of trust that Rabbi Akiva had to the level of the trust that Nachum Ish Gamzu had. And the fact that the Talmud is telling us those both stories is because we too can, in each one in his own way, can reach those level of trust in Hashem. That are not only I will understand that there is good, that there is bad, but these bad things are for my benefit, but I can make it with my level of trust in Hashem that they won't be bad to begin with. It will be a temporary illusion of bad that will then turn out and show me how I was saved and nothing bad happens to me. And now to conclude it, let's go to another talk of the Rebbe where the Rebbe explained the Rebbe gives a summary of faith and trust in Hashem and what is demanded from us. Okay.
In summary, on one hand, we need to have plain faith that everything comes from God. Since everything comes from Him and He is the ultimate source of goodness, everything must be absolutely good. If something appears to our human eyes to be negative, that itself is a sign that it is a higher form of goodness, one that is hidden and not capable of being openly perceived in a physical world. At the same time, we are expected to have complete trust without any doubt that things will be good in a way that is visibly and tangibly good. Trust in God does not mean believing that He will do something that only He knows is good. Rather, it means believing that He will bring about goodness in a way that is clear and recognizable as good to us as well. Such trust must remain firm even when, according to natural circumstances, there seems to be no hope. Despite that, we need to continue to trust that God will certainly help because He is not limited by the natural order and can change it at any moment. If we have already been afflicted with suffering, God forbid, our trust needs to remain firm and we need to accept them with joy and believe wholeheartedly that they are actually good. However, as long as suffering has not yet begun, even when from a natural perspective it seems inevitable, we need to maintain absolute trust that God will bring us goodness in a visible and clear way. We are expected to hold both perspectives because we are connected to God, who can tolerate opposites. Therefore, trust does not contradict faith. On the contrary, trust is a fundamental and essential part of faith itself.
Okay. Why is it demanded from us? Because rationally, those 2 points, they sometimes contradict each other, right? Because if I have trust in Hashem that nothing bad will happen to me, then if something bad happened to me, that's against my trust in Hashem. But no. Your trust is not a contradiction to your faith in Hashem. And your faith in Hashem is not a contradiction to your trust in Hashem. And how is it possible? You're saying 2 things that contradict each other? Because every Jew has a Jewish soul that comes from God Himself, where God Himself is the source of all the contradiction in the world. This is why a Jew can have at the same time a complete trust in Hashem that nothing bad will happen to him in his own interpretation. And if God forbid that thing happens, he continues with joy like nothing happened, because he has complete faith in Hashem that whatever happens to him, it's for his own good and his own benefit. Now let's see the point over here, and then we'll try and summarize it. Yes, Henji, please.
Key points. Trust in God is a fundamental principle of Jewish faith. Even in difficult times, we must strengthen our trust that God will turn the situation into good and pray for it, as ruled by Maimonides. We learned about the story of King Hezekiah, who was able to overturn the decree of his impending death through prayer. If something unfortunate happens to us, we must believe that it too is for the best, just in a hidden way. We must continue serving God with joy while praying that from now on the good will be revealed. We studied the story of Rabbi Akiva, who, when something negative happened to him, responded with faith that everything God does is for the best. Eventually, it became clear that even events that seemed bad at the time were ultimately for his benefit. Not everything that happens is inherently good, but its purpose is to bring us good. We also learned about Nakum Ish Gamzu, who saw good in everything, even in situations that seemed bad. In the end, it was revealed that the seemingly bad events were actually for the best. Everything that happens to us is in essence good. The Rabbi explains that trust and faith in God consists of two parts. Absolute trust that God will bring us good in a way that we can see and feel. Faith that God has the power to transform even hardship into complete good. If we experience suffering, we must believe that everything God does is for the best, and what appears to be bad is in truth hidden good.
Good.
Takeaway. None of us go through life without facing difficulty. We must remember that even when things seem unfavorable, we have the power to change reality, override the natural order, and transform any harsh decree into goodness and blessing.
Wow. Thank you very, very much. See you Be'ezrat Hashem next week. And I'm sure many of you have questions like I do. And if you do, please share it with me, and together we'll try to find what's the right answer to that. And more importantly than logical answers is how can we actually materialize this concept in our day-to-day life? Because when we do, Bezrat Hashem, we will materialize this concept of trust, complete faith, which is much easier. But then complete trust in Hashem, the way that the Rebbe explained it, and based on the Reshit Chochmah that we read in the beginning, and Shara Bitachon, our life will turn to be a much better life. So if you have any suggestions on how to actually implement it, and I can tell you that in my short life, I had few incidents where I saw bad things that I thought they may come. Some of them already came my way, and there was no logical way, no physical way to get out of it. And I've managed to, sometimes, very rare, I managed to withstand the challenge, and it actually turned to be good, and nothing happened. Nothing bad happened. But it's still very hard. So if you guys have any suggestion on how to do it, I will appreciate it a lot.
How did you?
But we can
How did
we can start with questions if it's easier.
you have time?
They're boarding now. Yeah, a few minutes. I'm boarding the last. I'm coming to the last person to the airport, and I'm boarding last.
No, but
Kenji,
you
you
better
can
not
close
miss your
the.
flight.
You can stop the recording, Kenji.
So this
Yeah, please.
so this attack on the 7th of October, there's something